What's up, everybody? It's me, Lone. I'm finally back. As you can see in my new setup, my new office, my wife and I just moved. It's the second time we've moved in a matter of 4 months. I wouldn't put that on my worst enemy. I hate moving. I'm tired of it. I'm exhausted. My back still hurts. My knee hurts. But ultimately, I am just glad that we're finally done with the move and I can start making videos once again. So speaking of, I do want to talk about Fallout London. While we were doing the move, there were a few different updates when it comes to Fallout London, what the situation is with the mod, when it could be releasing, what's the deal with having to downgrade Fallout 4 to the previous version of the game before the next gen update and all that kind of stuff. So in today's video, I want to talk about all of that, update you all on what's been happening with Fallout London and just share my thoughts on all the controversial issues. So if you enjoy this video, please like, subscribe if you're new, with notifications if that's possible. But before we get into this update, let's first hear a message from today's video sponsor. The following video is sponsored by the AORUS line of NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series graphics cards, including the Gaming OC, Aero OC, and the Master. These cards are absolute beasts, delivering incredible graphics, frame rate, and low latency performance, especially in games such as Ghost of Tsushima, where you'll be able to take advantage of NVIDIA DLSS3, NVIDIA DLAA, and NVIDIA Reflex. Cooling is a literal breeze thanks to the WindForce cooling system. Swapping between overclock and silent profiles is a cinch with the dual BIOS. Sagging is a thing of the past because of the anti-sag bracket, and lighting is powered by the AORUS RGB fusion system. And if all of that wasn't enough, AORUS has got your back with 4 years warranty if you register the card online. So click the links in the description or the pinned comment below to learn more about these AORUS cards and upgrade to the NVIDIA GeForce RTX 40 series GPUs for a super fast, super powered gaming experience. Alright, so to get into these updates about Fallout London, I need to highlight a few articles by VG247, specifically by Mark Warren. Mark has been doing a fantastic job just updating us on what's been going on with the mod, so please check out his articles, and I want to talk about 3 in particular. The first one is titled, Fallout London devs confirm the massive mod will need to downgrade your copy of Fallout 4 as the game's next-gen update is not stable enough. So let's get into this and I'll share my thoughts. Fallout London's project lead has confirmed that the massive mod will need to downgrade your copy of Fallout 4 to a version from before the next-gen updates that dropped earlier this year in order for you to be able to play it. The reason cited is that the next-gen version of Bethesda's RPG isn't stable enough. At the weekend, the team behind Fallout London released a statement revealing that the mod is now undergoing QA testing by GOG.com. We'll talk about that later, by the way. The storefront that'll be distributing it, and is therefore just waiting for the final green light. One detail mentioned in this statement is that the mod not only has its own installer, but also a downgrader, and project lead Dean Prilladog Carter has now revealed that the latter certainly isn't just being chucked in there as a cool optional inclusion. GOG has been amazing through all of this. To be honest, we've been the ones causing them the issue, while with us having things break due to the next gen update and then needing the third parties to update. Then waiting for them to be fixed, only for the fact that at the 11th hour we've discovered that the next gen version of Fallout 4, even after updates, isn't stable enough, and thus we are now going out on the old version, hence the need for a downgrader. There's also a paragraph where Dean talks about their frustrations when it comes to this whole situation. I'm not going to go into that verbatim, but I do want to say from the beginning, I completely understand their frustrations. Now, I've said this in a previous video, Fallout 4 is Bethesda Game Studios' game, right? They are the owners. They are the owners of the game, the IP, everything to do with Fallout and Fallout 4. They can do whatever the hell they want with Fallout 4. They can update it when they want. They can update it how they want. That is their prerogative as the owners of the game. No one really has the right externally to dictate to them, hey, update your game now, don't update your game now, do this or do that. They're the developers. They can do what they want, and they have every right to do so, right? But that doesn't mean that you don't have to at least empathize with the frustrations of the Fallout London team, right? And I don't even know if they're necessarily angry or frustrated with BGS themselves or just at the situation, because the situation, it does suck. It's a horrible coincidence, right? There's no way BGS planned this. Why would they plan to ruin a mod coming out that could potentially drive more sales for their game? Doesn't make any sense. I think it's just a really bad, set of circumstances. The timing is just off. But because of that, the situation sucks for the Fallout London team. I completely understand their frustrations. I completely understand why they're upset. So even though I do think Bethesda Game Studios can do what they want with the game because they own it, it's still hard not to, empathize with them and understand why they are upset and understand their frustrations and all that kind of stuff. Those two things, in my opinion, aren't mutually exclusive. But in terms of the next-gen update not being stable enough, I know the next-gen version of Fallout 4 had its issues, especially when it launched. The UI for your widescreen was stretched. There was a bunch of issues with the settings not working and mods on console and a bunch of other stuff like that as well. Now, to their credit, Bethesda Game Studios did release updates for Fallout 4, and they fixed a few of those things. If you look at a Digital Foundry video, if I can remember, I'll link it in the description below because it's an old video now, but they talked about how in one of the recent updates, Bethesda Game Studios have fixed a bunch of those settings issues and graphics issues that were plaguing the game after the next-gen update. So they have made some steps to fix what they originally broke with the first release of the next-gen update. But I know that there's still been other issues. There's probably still issues that haven't been resolved. However, if you go ahead and play Fallout 4 Next Gen right now, for the most part, it's fine. Like, it's playable from start to finish. It's not completely broken. So this is just me reading into things. When they say we don't think it's stable enough, I believe they're saying that in the sense it's not stable with our mod. Because if you remember, of course, Fallout London was developed in mind for the previous gen version of the game. It was coded for that, not for the next gen version. So because it's a completely different version, I think just by the reality of that, it's not stable with it, and it's going to require a lot more work to get it to be stable. So yes, in part, it's definitely a bit of the next gen update generally not being stable, but in particular, I think there's some incompatibility there between the next gen version and Fallout London, because London was created with the previous gen version in mind. So I think that's what's going on. Now, someone in the comments might correct me that the next gen update just sucks completely and is completely unplayable. For me, I haven't experienced that. I can play it fine. I can mod it fine. For the most part, obviously a bunch of mods are still broken, but if you just want to play Fallout 4 right now, you can from start to finish with the next gen version. So generally, I don't think it's that unstable. I think there's just some incompatibility now with Fallout London and the next gen version, just given the circumstances of development. And if you remember as well, the Fallout London team initially was against the whole downgrading option. They talked about this in a video. They didn't want downgrading to be the route they had to go down for several reasons. One, it just causes things to go wrong. Like if you ask people to downgrade their version of the game, a bunch of things can go wrong, especially if it's a manual downgrade. They might brick their game, they might have to uninstall it, the save files become corrupted, mods become ruined. There are so many things that can go wrong when you ask people to downgrade a game just to be able to play a mod, right? So that was one reason they didn't want to do it. And also another reason that I highlighted, it does fragment the audience. Like, people just want to download Fallout 4 wherever it is and be able to play any mod. They don't want to have to downgrade their version just to be able to play one mod. Do you know what I mean? Because then that causes issues with other mods that only work with the next gen version, like the unofficial patch and a bunch of other stuff like that. So there was that. There was also the fact that things can go wrong. So initially they didn't want to do it, but it looks like they have no other choice here. Like, if Fallout London simply is not stable with the next-gen version of the game, then what else do they do? Either they wait potentially ages until they can get it to work, or, like a lot of people have been asking, just release the version that works with the previous version so we can play it, and then eventually release one that works with next gen. And that's what their plan is, right? Like, they've said they plan on getting that done eventually. But for now, a lot of people just want to play the mod. A lot of people wanted to play the mod back in April, right? In the heyday of the Fallout show. That's why so many people are upset about the situation. And people ask, hey, just release it. And if you remember at that time, they said in very similar words, it's ready to go. We just need to release it. That's what they said back then. So a lot of people were like, why not just release it, right? So the situation is just frustrating, but they didn't want to do that downgrade option because of those reasons. However, because they have no choice, they're going down that path, and at the very least, they're releasing a downgrader. That's fantastic, and that's probably why it's been taking a little bit longer, because they have to make the bloody downgrader, in addition to a way to install the game as well, or sorry, install the mod as well, which is awesome. So it seems like there's just going to be an executable, bam, 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 downgrade, whatever. It's all going to be done for you, all automatic, and that takes time, that takes effort to do, and I really appreciate that they've done that. So that's freaking awesome, right? But this situation is still a shame in general. It's still a shame that it's taken this long. It's still a shame that the audiences are going to be fragmented. It's still a shame that you can't use your current version of Fallout 4 and you have to downgrade, even though the Fallout London team is making it as easy as possible. it is still a little bit of a shame, right? But that's not the only issue at play here. Apparently as well, according to this next article from VG247, Fallout London won't be playable via Epic Game Store copies of Fallout 4 at launch, GOG confirmed. So this is what this article has to say. Quote, a spokesperson for GOG.com, the PC storefront, which is set to distribute the massive Fallout 4 mod Fallout London, has confirmed to VG247 or 24/7 that it's currently not in line to be playable via Epic Game Store bought copies of the game at launch. Following the recent announcement that the version of the mod now in line to be used for the initial release will require players to downgrade their copies of Fallout 4 to an iteration prior to the next-gen update, GOG has told VG247 that this switch will, at least in the short term, unfortunately have an effect on plans to try and offer the mod to PC players regardless of where they bought the game. Of course, that was the original intention of the mod team behind Fallout London. As of writing, the mod being compatible with the GOG version of the game is still a certainty due to that storefront offering a very simple and convenient rollback feature, and work on a downgrading option via a downgrading tool and or manual downgrading that'll allow those who own the game through Steam to play it is in progress. However, the need to revert game versions has forced Team Folon and GOG to rule out being able to offer it for Epic distributed copies on release, simply due to the fact that the storefront doesn't support update rollbacks. While if you are hoping to play the mod right away via the Epic Games Store version of Fallout 4, this is obviously bad news. It's important to remember that Team Folon hasn't really been left with a choice in the matter, having found at the 11th hour that next-gen Fallout 4 isn't stable enough. The team has also already indicated that it does still currently have plans to offer a version of the mod that's updated for next-gen Fallout 4 at some point further down the line, which, not requiring a rollback, will presumably work with Epic Store copies. So, this update confused me a little bit because I understand that they're saying GOG is going to be fine because it has a rollback feature, which is freaking awesome, by the way. I didn't actually realize that GOG had a rollback feature, and it would work perfectly in situations like this where if you have a mod that only works with the previous version of the game, bim boom bam, don't have to do anything else, don't have to install your own downgrader or whatever it might be. You can just downgrade or roll back using GOG's feature and be able to use that mod. So I didn't know that. That's freaking sick, right? So I understand that. I also understand, of course, that because Steam doesn't have a rollback feature, there's going to have to be a different process to be downgrading Fallout 4 to the previous version. Again, either via a downgrading tool, which they said they're doing. They also said, though, manual downgrading as well. So clearly, that is still an option for Steam versions of Fallout 4. It's just not one that they want to do, seemingly, because they want to make it as easy as possible for people. And because, as well, as I said, things can go wrong. But then they're saying that because of that, it just simply won't work with the Epic Game Store version. Now, I understand if the downgrading tool, which is specifically coded for Steam, doesn't work with the Epic Game Store version, but why couldn't the Epic Game Store version be manually downgraded, right? Why couldn't people, if they have the ability and the skill and the way to do that, why couldn't Epic Game Store versions of Fallout 4 be downgraded manually so that they also work with Fallout London, right? That's the bit that I don't necessarily understand. Like, I get that they don't want to ask people to do it manually because it opens up a kettle of fish for a bunch of issues. Again, you can ruin your games, save files, whatever it might be, right? I understand that. But if people are willing to take the risk, and if it's technically possible to downgrade Fallout 4 and Epic Game Store to be used with Fallout London, why can't it be done? Maybe they don't want to be seen as like endorsing that. Like GOG is putting their necks on the line here and saying, hey, this is going to work if you're on GOG or Steam, but we can't guarantee it for Epic Game Store because you have to manually downgrade it and that could cause issues. So we don't want to officially endorse that. Maybe that's what's going on, but I still think it would be nice, even though they're doing the downgrading tool, which is fantastic, just release a set of instructions that allow people to manually downgrade it, say it's at your risk, and let people do it. At least give them the option to be able to try and see if they can play Fallout London. And if they ruin their game, they have to start over. But they go into that knowing that fact. They know the risks. That would be nice. But it seems to me that they're saying that even if someone was to manually downgrade their Epic Store version of Fallout 4, will it still not work with Fallout London? Like, why would it not be able to work if this mod can just work with Fallout 4? I don't necessarily get that. And if that is the case, I would still like them to provide, detailed instructions on how to do a manual downgrade. I understand the reasons why they didn't want to do that in the first place. It caused issues and whatever. But just say it's at your risk. Other mods do it all the time. People are going to try. People are going to try as well. So why not help them as much as possible in that process? I don't know, man. That's just the one thing that I'll say. It would be nice to have that choice and that option there. But I also do agree that this isn't their fault. Obviously, this isn't their fault, and they're doing what they think is best in the circumstances, in this situation. They think it's best to have a downgrading tool so people don't stuff up their games, to make it as easy as possible. And maybe, if I'm interpreting this right, they don't want to endorse manual downgrades for Epic Games Store because of all the issues that can cause. I understand that. I agree that this isn't their fault, but it would still be nice if that manual option was there for people on Epic Games Store. But they do say eventually they want this to work with next gen, and at that stage, it should obviously work with Fallout 4 on Epic Games Store. It's just going to take some time. How long it's going to take, who bloody knows at this stage? It could be right until the end of the year. I don't know, man. I think the next big discussion that we need to have is when this thing is actually going to be releasing. So speaking of, let's get into this third article. It is titled, Fallout London's developers couldn't tell you its current release date even if they wanted to, project lead says. And this is what the article has to say. The project lead of massive Fallout 4 mod Fallout London has said that the reason its developers haven't revealed its release date yet is due to them having signed non-disclosure agreements. This explanation follows the team revealing last month that it had locked in a new internal release date for the mod after a delay necessitated by the arrival of Fallout 4's next gen update forced it to abandon its planned release date of April 23. Though this time around, unlike the previous ones the modders had penciled in for their creation, the exact date of the intended release wasn't made public. According to Carter, the project lead, Team Folon's developers couldn't reveal the new release date to prospective players even if they wanted to because they've signed non-disclosure agreements. The modder seemingly didn't specify the exact party the cited agreements have been signed with. I assume that that's going to be GOG, though he did imply that the current date isn't too far away. Now, I understand the NDA side. If that's what they indeed did sign, I understand it. Don't break your NDA. That is stupid. Like, follow everything to the book so you don't get in trouble, so you don't compromise the ability for you to work with GOG down the line, or even other modders to work with GOG down the line. Follow your NDA and you're going to be good, right? Completely understand it. However, there has to be a process in place for announcing a release date. Games release on GOG all the time, and mods have in the past. There was a mod before, and obviously now this has happened. But mainly games release on GOG all the time. Developers are allowed to announce release dates. So I don't quite know what was signed here. Maybe GOG is putting something a little bit extra to say, hey, don't announce a new release date until you can confirm to us that this works, and especially until this passes the greenlighting process, which it has since, mind you, and we'll talk about that. So maybe they put in something a little bit extra in there to make sure that a new release date wasn't announced too soon, all right, prematurely. Maybe that's what's going on, but there needs to be a process for announcing a release date. This thing eventually is going to need a release date unless they decide to shadow drop it, right? But anyways, I'm going to assume that that's part of the agreement that they signed. But NDA aside, I also agree, though, that they shouldn't be announcing any release dates until they are absolutely bloody ready. We don't want a release of last time. If you remember last time, April 23, that wasn't the first release date. That was actually a delay in and of itself. The mod was meant to be out last year. If you remember, it was meant to be out by the end of 2023. I think that's what they said generally. Maybe they put a more specific date, I can't remember, but they said it was meant to be last year. April 23 was a new release date, and they did a big push towards that. They explained why they were delaying it. More work had to go into the mod and a bunch of other stuff. So now that that's happened, and then that didn't get hit, obviously through no fault of their own, it's not their fault, but because of everything, because of the instability of Fallout 4 Next Gen and da-da-da-da-da, yeah, it's the smart play to wait. Just wait, make sure you're absolutely bloody ready, and then announce the release date. Now, hopefully it is very soon, because there are some big releases later this year. Star Wars Outlaws, Avowed, Indiana Jones, the list goes on, right? Right now, it's a bit of a lull period. It would be perfect to release Fallout London right now, just because of the timing. People's attention won't be preoccupied with other games. We have more time to play Fallout London. I would love if it was released right now, right bloody now, because I would have a lot of time to play it, right? So they can't wait too long, and hopefully it is sometime soon, because if they release it later this year, how many people are going to be playing Fallout London with so many other big releases coming out? I hope that might compromise the mod, even though they're not really making money from this, even though it's a passion project, right? It would still be nice to see it succeed in that regard. So hopefully it does come out sooner rather than later. And then there's every chance that they might do a shadow drop, right? They might be like, you know what, we're not going to announce a release date because of those previous delays and those issues. but we're going to do a shadow drop like they did with Hi-Fi Rush. And that was a success for Xbox and for Bethesda and Tango Gameworks, rest in peace. So maybe that's what they decide to do. I would like them to see them announce it. I want them to have their release date, to have their launch moment. That would be cool. Have a bunch of websites cover it in the lead up and obviously the launch itself. So hopefully they can release something soon. But actually, I have a fourth article to talk about today. This final one is titled, Fallout London is back in Team Bolon's hands after seemingly getting the green light from GOG, but its project lead says, please don't get overexcited. So this is what they had to say about that. Massive Fallout 4 mod Fallout London's developers have confirmed that their creation is back in their hands and is no longer down to GOG, but are urging prospective players not to get too excited quite yet. Now, the team has confirmed via Fallout London's Discord server that the mod is back in its hands, but has warned that this doesn't mean fans should get overly hyped up about the release being directly imminent quite yet, as there are still some things that'll need sorting before that happens. After a bot Team Folon has set up in the server began replying to fans, green light has been given by GOG. The project is now back in our hands for the final stage. Project lead Dean Preladol Carter provided some important context regarding the current situation. It doesn't mean it's today. Tomorrow doesn't look good either, he wrote. It just means that it is back in our hands and no longer down to GOG, since all the things we need to do are done on our side. You will not be waiting long at all. However, since the last time I gave anything close to a specific date went down like the Hindenburg, I won't comment further. Probably a good idea. He then added, I will also reiterate that we haven't done a full Discord announcement because the situation hasn't changed. You don't have it in your hands yet. Please don't get overexcited. And no journalists, you don't need to cover our automated bot message. When we have finalized things, the announcement will go up via the official Team Folon account. So sit tight, it's coming soon. VG247 did the article anyways. I still appreciate the fact that they did. They have every right to do so. They're journalists. But he's kind of just calming everyone down, saying, look, yes, we have it back in our hands. There's still a few things that we need to do. Hopefully it is sometime soon. It should be soon. I get the need to ask for patience. I understand why they want to do that. They don't want a repeat of last time. They don't want to get people too excited because that has consequences. If you keep hyping people up and getting excited, then the release date isn't hit and it keeps happening, eventually people are going to be like, fuck off. Like, I just want the mod. Stop talking about it and just release the bloody thing. That's why they don't want another release set out there. That's why they're calming people down. That's why he's providing context and saying, guys, it's just an automated, Discord bot. We just have to update our Patreon members. Stop making articles about this. Hopefully it's going to be soon, but don't take this too seriously. Don't get too excited. So completely understand the need to ask for patience in this regard. But as I said, eventually I would like to see a release date announced. It would be nice to see a release date instead of a shadow drop. I think it'll just be a nicer build up for them to try and get a little bit more awareness. Like, they aren't Xbox, they aren't Bethesda as part of a big press conference doing a shadow drop. They're a smaller mod team, right? For a game like Fallout 4. That's a bit older at this stage. It had a bit of a resurgence, but still, it's not comparison. It's apples and oranges here. So I think they do need a bit of hype. They do need a bit of a more traditional lead-up cycle and announcement for this mod, I believe. So even if it's a week, just say, hey, it's coming out in a week, allows everyone to get hyped about it, to talk about it, journalists to write their articles and everything. I think it would be better than a shadow drop. And if I was to guess, if I was to provide an estimation as to when this thing could come out, I'm going to say August. I think at this stage, August seems likely. It's still in that bit of a lull period before some really big releases come out, and it still gives them time to work on what they need to after the green light has been completed, to do the downgrader and everything like that. So that would be my guess. I'm still very excited for it. I just want to be able to play this thing. I think this team has been dealt a raw deal. Again, not intentionally by BGS, but just through the circumstance. It has been a big crap. I've already talked at length about how it would have been nice for BGS to at least talk to them and tell them, hey, we're doing this, how can we work with you? It would have made this whole thing a hell of a lot smoother. But again, that's their prerogative. They're the owners of the game. They don't need to. So let me know what you think about all of this situation, fam, in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this video. And until next time, this has been the Lone Vault Wanderer. Please take care of yourselves. And would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.